Atheists today are the most arrogant, ignorant, and dangerous people on earth. This is a quote from an article posted on Fox News today. The link is in the description. And it's pretty inflammatory against atheists in general, which is fine, except that it's wrong, and the writer's arguments supposedly backing up these claims are not only fallacious, they, in a pretty ironic twist, far more accurately describe religion and some religious people. The author uses popular stereotypes that perpetuate negative feelings that society has towards atheists simply because they can't imagine good without God. Hi y'all, welcome to KC's Corner. I'm a little under the weather this week, so we're just gonna jump right in with some definition of words here, shall we? Arrogant. Having an exaggerated sense of one's own importance. There are over 4,200 religions in the world. Whatever religion you are or aren't is often a factor of culture, geography, era, and upbringing. If you were born in Syria in 1988, you're most likely Muslim. If you were born in Syria in the 7th century, you were most likely Christian. If you live in the U.S. South, you are likely some form of evangelical or conservative Protestant denomination of Christianity. If you live in China, while there are 5 state-recognized religions, you are more likely to be non-religious. There are Eastern religions, Western religions, radical religions, cults, religions based on pasta. And generally speaking, they all think they're right. They all worship their god or gods while dismissing others as fake news, and often think that their way is the only way to heaven, whatever that means to them. Based on their individual beliefs, they discriminate against one another, try to pass laws in their governments ensuring they are favored over others, or attempt to take over the government entirely in establishing a theocracy, which they use to force other people to practice what they believe. They use their religion as an excuse to hurt people, to kill people, yet we are the arrogant ones. Ignorant. Lacking knowledge or awareness in general, or about something in particular. Given that a lot of religious people rely heavily on their religious scriptures for knowledge, often ignoring other information, ideas, evidence, and facts from outside their religious teaching, I'm not sure that an ignorance argument is one that religious people should really be throwing around. Are there well-educated religious people? Totally. Are there ignorant atheist people? Yes. But here's the difference. Religious people are guided by a preset way of thinking, specific rules and guidelines for what you are supposed to believe and how you're supposed to act. And you think this way based solely on ancient texts, avoiding any and all evidence that might bring your preconceived notions and opinions into question. That, my friends, is willful ignorance. I've seen people lay hands on and pray for graduating high schoolers headed to college, praying for their souls that they reject any knowledge that might lead them away from God. Religious leaders depend on their followers buying into their particular brand and denying anything outside of it, because if they don't, they're punished, which keeps religious populations far more ignorant than non-religious ones who are not punished for learning something new. Dangerous. Likely to cause harm or injury, or cause problems or have adverse consequences. Atheists don't believe in God. Aside from this non-belief, which religious people also hold in relation to other gods besides their own, we have no dogma, no doctrine, no set guiding principles which we all share that would motivate our actions. Religious scriptures often advocate for violence against people who do not believe the same as you. They call their followers to eradicate heretics, non-believers, and those of other faiths. Which one of these sounds more dangerous to you? Open your eyes and look around you. If you have any kind of awareness of the things going on in the world, you can easily pinpoint religion to be a root cause for a lot of harmful and dangerous behavior all over the world, and no one is immune to its effects. An easy target would be radical Islam and terrorism. I don't need to spend too much time on this, as the impacts of Islamic extremists are felt all over the world. I've also talked about Ashura in a previous video, which is a practice in which people slice open their heads and children's heads in a celebration ritual. But we can completely step away from Islam when discussing the dangerous impacts of religion. Let's move over to cults, shall we? religious groups that tear families apart and brainwash members, groups that practice dangerous and illegal sex practices with children, groups that participate in human and animal sacrifices to their god or gods, groups that convince everyone in the group to commit mass suicide. We could spend a lot of time talking about the danger of cults too, but we could also move a little closer to home for a lot of you, Christianity. GE and I hear so many stories from Christians and former Christians about how much emotional damage they've suffered on behalf of religion. We could start with the picketing and shaming at women's clinics, or anti-gay hatred on behalf of Westboro Baptist Church. And if you don't want to go that extreme, we can talk about how emotionally damaging indoctrination can be. People who, when reflecting on their childhood, talk about how they couldn't go to sleep at night because they were afraid God would kill them in their sleep because they sinned during the day. Or how gay and trans teens were forced to hide who they are because they were afraid their families would abandon them. How shame, fear, and depression for not being perfect according to whatever specific religion or deity has led to self-harm and suicides. Or we could talk about children dying all over the country as a result of faith-healing parents who refuse to get proper medical treatment for their children, choosing instead to pray as they watch them die. All of these examples of dangerous behavior, while atheists simply don't believe in God. So moving along through the article, he talks about how offended we get by religious imagery in public and how mortified we are by even the slightest whisper of a Merry Christmas. First of all, we see religious imagery in public all the time, and while we have various opinions about it, it only becomes an issue when it is pushed using public money, our tax dollars, or becomes a slogan for public services that are for everyone. For example, using taxpayer money to emblazon all police vehicles with "In God We Trust," or using public funds to build monuments to the 10 Commandments on courthouses, putting Christianity ahead of all other religions or no religion. This is against public policy and it's unacceptable. But because Christianity is the majority religion in the US, it is shoved down our throats on a daily basis. In Middle East theocracies, people of other religions or the non-religious are imprisoned, tortured, and killed. And yes, that offends us. If you were a halfway decent person, it would offend you too. And your war on Christmas bullshit is ridiculous. Christmas has been significantly secularized, and most atheists I know celebrate Christmas. The whole idea behind Happy Holidays, vice Merry Christmas, is to be inclusive of all, not exclusive of Christianity. It is meant to extend greetings to people of all faiths and creeds and to non-believers alike. No matter how you choose to celebrate your holidays, season's greetings, or happy holidays is a kind gesture to you. You are the ones offended by someone not bending to your will. You're offended because someone offers you a happy holiday season simply because they don't place your chosen faith above all others. That seems to fall under the arrogance category we previously discussed. The author goes on to discuss how loud, nasty, and unapologetic we atheists are. Sure, some are loud. Some religious people are very loud as well. And there are far more of you than there are of us. Some are nasty, but most aren't. What most atheists will find when they leave their respective faiths and reach out to other non-believers is acceptance, understanding, and friendship without conditions. We are unapologetic. We have nothing to apologize for. We've done nothing to you. But most of you have done something to us. Most of us were at one point or another indoctrinated, and a lot of us lost family and friends when we came out as non-believers. We lose people's trust simply because we don't believe in a God. Do you know that atheists are the least trusted group of all people in America, even lower than rapists? Why? Because we have the gall to not believe in shit that there's no evidence for? We have nothing to apologize for, but there are a lot of you out there who should be apologizing to us for how you've treated us. He continues on with this statement, and I'm going to quote it because I find it insanely ironic. Atheists believe that the vast majority of human beings from all periods of time and all places on earth have been wrong about the thing most important to them. Supposedly, that's what makes us ignorant. It's so funny because you feel exactly the same way that we do about the vast majority of religions from all periods of time and all places on earth, except for yours. Yours is right. Right? And that's what makes you so less arrogant and ignorant than me, that you believe in one more God than I do. Okay then. Next, the author talks about how the greatest contributions to the world have been by believers, as if this somehow makes believers correct about their belief. A monk, Gregor Mendel, was the father of genetics. A Catholic priest proposed the idea of the Big Bang Theory. That's great, and still proves nothing to advance your claims. Yes, there are smart religious people who have figured shit out. Atheists do not claim to have a monopoly on intelligence, but keep in mind when you reach back into history to pull all of these people out. Also remember that not believing in God in those times resulted in your death. So of course everyone practiced a religion. If you didn't, you weren't allowed the opportunity to make contributions to the world. Finally, the author expands upon the idea that we are dangerous. And you know what he pulls out, right? Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, the works. Oh, and the preposterous claim that Hitler was also an atheist. But that's neither here nor there. If you'd like to reach back in history and pick out a few dictators, that's fine. But when you're done, why don't you take a look around you? You mentioned abortions, as if atheists are the only people who get abortions. But the majority of abortions would be had by religious people, since there are far fewer of us. Apparently, we atheists kill our problems through suicide. Do you know why atheists have a higher rate of suicide than religious people? The same reason that LGBT teens do. The same reason that any minority group that is outcast and discriminated against by their families and friends do. Because we're told we're evil, broken, damaged, demonic, hateful, awful, disgusting, and so much more. Because we get threats of violence, rape, and death on behalf of religious people. And do you know why religious people behave in this manner? Because their religion tells them to. Because it is in their scripture. Yet we're the bullies. We are the bullies because we will no longer sit in the corner quietly and be abused. Because we're building communities and families of people who have been cast aside by loving religious people. Because we teach people logic and how to use rational thinking to answer their questions. Because we spread knowledge. Because we won't put up with your shit anymore. Because we are no longer afraid to stand up and use our voices. At the very end of the article, the author presents a call to action. There is only one way to deal with bullies, even in this politically correct world, and that is to stand up to them and fight them, to fight them in a bold, aggressive, and fearless way, and to fight them now. In this call to action, we are the bullies. As I read this article through the first time, I was truly shocked at how backwards it is, and I wonder what this man is calling for people to do. Stone us, as the Bible directs? Kill us all, as the Quran commands? This man and so many like him are using their religion, their gods, supposedly of peace and love, to rally people to fight us, to harm us aggressively and fearlessly to defend their faith. All because we choose not to believe in their God. Forcing people to believe as you do isn't a good deed. It also isn't faith when someone practices your religion under duress. You aren't doing anyone any good. You are doing harm. Religion is tearing families apart. Sick children who can't protect themselves are dying because of faith. Belief in a God motivates people to fly planes into buildings. But we are dangerous because we don't believe. Religious people throughout history have been bullies, as they still are today. And they are doing their best to threaten, intimidate, and silence us. There's no polite way to say it. Religion is the most arrogant, ignorant, and dangerous thing on earth. Thank you all for joining me on this week's episode of Casey's Corner. Please make sure you smash that like button and subscribe if you like our content. And as always, don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.